Hey everyone, my name is Lizzie and today we're doing a reaction video to the reaction video of the past video, which was the oak tasting rum test. Which was the rum tasting oak test. What was it called? Which was the oak chips reaction video when I put it in rum. So let's just look at a couple of comments that I've received. Guys, this was brutal. So let me just set the record straight by adding a few clarifications. So when I said rum, I meant non-distilled rum. So rum that was still in the fermenter, and this is putting oak chips in it. So this is before the final product. I do believe that my title was confusing because I mentioned adding oak chips to rum. So just to clarify, we're talking about the wash that becomes rum after it's fermented and distilled. In order to let you know this, I looked at the definition, the true definition of rum, and based on the American definition, rum is a distilled product. So we can't say it's rum if the alcohol is at 20% or less. Usually distilled products start at around 30, 35, 40, and higher percentages of alcohol. So that's one thing. Talking about how my rum is supposedly beer. So I looked upon this, and beer is actually made of 3 ingredients. The first one is grain or barley, and this is a source of starch. The definition of starch, you have it below here. We also have the next ingredient of beer, which is hops. And this is more of a flavoring agent, so it offsets the sweetness of the malt. And it's actually 4 ingredients, so the other ones are yeast and water. However, I do not use grain or barley or hops for my rum wash. I'm gonna tell you what I use actually. I use water, yeast, molasses, sugar. That's it. So I can't really consider it as beer since I'm not mashing grains. It's not really wine because I don't have fruits in my wash. So what would you call this? I've looked upon this, and what I saw was rum bouillon. That's what we call rum that is not distilled. So let me know in the comments if you know what this drink is considered. It's not rum, it's not beer, it's in between a lot of stuff, but I know that in order to make rum, you need molasses and it needs to be distilled. So this is like rum in the process of becoming rum. It's just that it's not distilled. But therefore, I call this rum. I should just talk about it from now on as non-distilled rum. And I read a little bit about rum, and usually rum tends to be aged in oak barrels. So they don't really age rum with oak chips. And unlike wine, rum does not get better with age once it's in a bottle. However, it does get better with age if it's in a barrel. So once rum is in a barrel, it will get better, and this is because the wood blends in with the rum and it gives it certain flavors. And this aging process makes the rum more spicy. It could give it caramel tones, vanilla tones, leather tobacco tones, even candied fruit tones. And this is based on the type of barrel, the type of rum, a bunch of factors. In terms of oak chips, the equivalent of using oak chips is toasting them first. And depending on the level of heat that you add to your oak chips, it'll yield different flavors to your alcohol. But is all rum aged? Let me give you an example. Bacardi, a brand that we all know, is aged for 1 year before it is ready. And rums generally are aged as well in barrels. So I looked a little bit into this since not everyone is able to afford barrels or have a bunch of huge barrels sitting in their kitchen or their backyard. And I was wondering how much oak chips to add to rum for it to yield the right flavors, and it's all over the place. So it's depending on your taste. It can range between 10 to 50 grams per liter, half an ounce per gallon, 20 to 30 grams per liter. And this depends on if you want to age wine, if you want to age beer, if you want to age rum. So it's all over the place. Basically, it's based on your preference. But I do remember that based on my other video, I mentioned that the taste just gave me wood tones. I didn't get any vanilla, any other of these exotic flavors. I just got wood, and upon a little research, I noticed that it's because I added too much oak chips. And the oak chips that I added were American, so these are the strong kind, unlike the Hungarian and the French. So there's 3 types of oak chips, and the American ones are the strongest compared to the French. French have a more subtle oak taste. It can also be sweeter, and it has more tannins. So tannins is another word for bitterness. And the Hungarian oak chips, on their end, they're more mellow and they give you more of a vanilla tone. So I was wondering, why do people add oak chips or age rum after it's been distilled and not during the fermentation process? And upon a ton of hours of research, I discovered that once a wash is distilled, so you already know what type of flavor it's gonna have, and the oak chips just bring it home. So it's gonna give you a clearer idea of how the oak chips affects the flavoring and what direction it's going into. However, if you add the oak chips while it's in the fermentation process, you never know what type of flavor it's gonna yield, because the yeast can still be eating the sugar, and the alcohol is not at its purest form yet. So once the rum is distilled, when you add oak chips or when you put it in a barrel, it's gonna help you stabilize the flavors better. However, what happens if you don't distill? In my case, I don't distill, and I thought that adding oak chips towards the end of the fermentation process was gonna be okay, because the alcohol is pretty much ready, since I don't distill it. It did change the flavor, but it's not what I was looking for. One thing to note is that not all oak chips are created equal. And if you're the type to distill, and if you want to put your rum into those fancy contests, into those rum making contests, the judges evaluate 3 main factors. Number 1 is the color. Number 2 is the clarity of your rum. And number 3 is the viscosity, or in other terms, it's how thick your rum is, how sticky, how semi-fluid it is. So basically the consistency of your alcohol. I'm not sure how many of you participate in these contests. Let me know below if you've won some in the past, or if you're planning on participating in the future. That'd be really interesting. So let me give you a little bit more information on these 3 aspects of the rum evaluating committee. So for the color, if you have a sort of rich color, this means it may indicate a level of maturity. If you have exceptional clarity, this means sophisticated filtering methods. And in order to judge this, what the judges do, they usually swirl the cup in the light and they look at it and be the judge. And actually, speaking of judging, so I remember last video, I had a shot of rum that was aged with oak chips and a shot of rum that was not aged with oak chips, and we found out that the one aged with oak chips was lighter. However, it came to mind that it's possible that it's just because the shot was closer to the light. So let's just do that test again. But before doing so, I just like to mention that based on the amount of oak chips that's suggested to add to rum, they suggest putting 20 to 30 grams of oak chips per glass jar. So when I put my oaks in the jar, I put about 5 times this amount. So it really comes to show that I put too much, and therefore it just yielded wood flavors. So sometimes too much is not enough. So now for that test, I'm just going to get back with my 2 shots, one rum aged with oak and the other rum not aged with oak. We're gonna do a little test for the audience. Alrighty then, we're doing a test number 2. We're gonna pour non-distilled rum, or in other words, just fermented. Fermented rum with oak chips in the shot glass. Ooh. Forgot a tissue again. And fermented rum without any oak chips inside the other shot glass. This is the one mixed with oak. This is the one without oak. So I'm gonna mix it so you don't see. Ooh. Ooh. Now, do you know which one is the oak chips, is the one with oak chips and the one without oak chips? Is one lighter than the other, or was it just the lighting? Actually, both are the same, but from my point of view, this one is darker. So let's just see how, this is actually the one without oak chips, this is the one with oak chips, and let's just invert them. Wow, magic. So you really do see that the one with oak chips is lighter. So it's significantly lighter with light, but if the dark one is near the light, oh my God, this is the dark one, or the one with no oak chips. If this is the one nearest to the light, they look pretty much the same. So I'm not sure if it's clear, but this one is definitely darker. It's so dark that even when it's closest to the light, it's the same color as the oak chips. However, this one, you do see the oak chips one is definitely brighter. So, are oak chips a filtering agent? I Googled this and I wasn't able to find anything on it. I saw that charcoal or carbon is a filtering agent. So let me know in the comments below if oak chips are used for filtering. It does affect the color, it affects the flavor for sure. And for me, it does seem like it's filtered the alcohol, but I don't know if that's actually proven. So I just don't want to give you any information that I think. I just want to make sure that it's legit. So let me know if you use oak chips to filter your alcohol during fermentation. And that's it for this video. It's a bit longer than the other one. So just leave me some comments below if you want more clarifications, and I'll do a third reaction video, the reaction of the reaction of the reaction. So hope this helped, and if you found this video valuable, share this with a friend, and I'll see you in the next one.